You know when you're walking home alone in the dark and you get anxious because someone is walking behind you? Don't worry, it's not a stalker. It's the love of your life. And that sinking feeling in your stomach? Those are just butterflies. At least according to a lot of K-dramas. This is a super common trope. A character is obsessed with the protagonist to a point that it should be creepy, but the stalking is somehow framed as romantic. Stalking, in this case, is referring to a variety of behavioral patterns like unwanted repeated surveillance, following the victim in person, monitoring them, contacting them without their consent, sending them unwanted gifts, threatening them, and many other tactics. In media, there are typically two ways to depict stalking. Either you make that plotline into a scary psychological thriller in which the stalker is clearly a villain, or you make a romance drama in which an infatuated protagonist exhibits the same creepy behavior, but the story wants us to root for the couple. In this video essay, I want to explore what is it exactly that makes stalking look either cute or unsettling on screen. So lock your door, close your curtains, and let's discuss the romanticized depiction of stalking in K-dramas. The biggest difference between a romance and a thriller boils down to the visual language and the editing choices. Even though the same pattern of behavior is depicted, how it is filmed is what changes the framing. The creepy stalker is a shadowy figure looming in the background or hiding in the darkest corner. The romanticized version of that scene is usually filmed in daylight. The stalker's face is shown from flattering angles with close-up shots, showing how smitten they are, often including their inner monologue as a voiceover. A creepy stalker's face is often revealed later in the story, making them look like a faceless anonymous threat at first, not humanizing them. There are usually a lot of shots of that character filmed from the back. We barely hear the stalker speak, and don't know what they are really thinking. The location also plays a big role. Scary depictions of stalking are often filmed in the dark on a street without lamps or in a dimly lit hallway with only one source of light. A crowded, well-lit space from a romantic K-drama feels safe and non-threatening. Color grading can significantly impact the mood and the tone of the stalking scenes too. Romanticized depictions feature warmer or more vibrant colors, evoking a sense of affection, often shot with that signature dreamy filter and a soft focus. Creepy stalking scenes may employ desaturated or cooler tones, often with a green or blue filter, emphasizing a sense of foreboding and darkness. There are also a lot of shots that create a sense of surveillance, emphasizing the intrusion into a victim's privacy. For example, peephole shots, someone watching through a camera screen, and a lot of shaky handheld shots that imply someone is watching. Compare this visual style to the slow and steady camera of romantic stories, often in slow motion. The sound also has a huge impact on the scene and can influence the audience's perception of obsessive behavior. In K-dramas with romantic depiction of stalkers, the editors often add either a romantic love song, which conveys the character's connection and chemistry, or silly comedic music that shows how playful their interaction is. A lot of times, they even add a sparkling sound to emphasize how magical the moment is. The score is very different in horror depictions of stalking. There's often unsettling music that builds up tension, or ominous silence with distant steps in the background that keep getting closer, a violin screech here and there, or a heavy bass impact sound during a jump scare. Let's look at a couple examples to demonstrate how manipulative editing can be. I can't use the original music from these K-dramas for copyright reasons, so instead, I used a very similar sound to try and recreate the mood as close to the original as possible. First, let's watch this scene from The Smile Has Left Your Eyes, in which the protagonist is following the female lead at night after a fight. Okay, and now let's watch the exact same scene but with a creepy soundtrack and see how the tone changes. See what I mean? I wanna try another one. This is a clip from Something About 1%, a show with a very possessive male lead that people often recommend because the main characters supposedly have so much horny chemistry. The scene looks so playful and fun with that music. That's how we know this is a cute first kiss. I don't think it aged well. And this is what the scene looks like with a horror movie soundtrack. The sound really changes the mood of a scene, doesn't it? The original music seems really inappropriate now. I am starting to suspect that editors use this type of music on purpose, because they know how unsettling these scenes look like without funny background music. Next time you watch a K-drama, pay attention to the editing, because the music tells the viewers how they're supposed to feel and can distort their perception of what is actually happening on screen. Now, let's look at a way the screenwriters can distort depiction of stalking. A very common trope that a lot of these K-dramas employ is the presence of an even bigger creep, who makes the obsessive protagonist look like the good guy. Cheese in the Trap, both the series and the movie has this trope. The male lead is incredibly weird, but compared to a faceless, dangerous stalker, he looks like a harmless hero. This is a great way to make a morally grey protagonist seem desirable to the audience. The K-drama The Smile Has Left Your Eyes does the same thing. Sure, he is a murderer who keeps following the female lead, showing up unannounced, breaking into her house and threatening her if she doesn't talk to him, but there is a more annoying asshole in the story, so it's okay. Let's also look at this scene from True Beauty, in which the jealous male lead follows his crush while she's on a movie date with a different guy. He knows what he is doing is wrong, but because he was secretly watching them, he finds out that the guy is a playboy who already has a girlfriend and fully intends to take advantage of the female lead. Our hero then saves the day by beating up the guy and forcing him to dump her. Aww, he was just looking out for a girl, saving her from a broken heart, as if she can't manage her love life herself. Turns out, following people, beating them up, and meddling in their relationships is not that bad. His heart was in the right place. This trope implies the existence of good stalking versus bad stalking. By presenting stalking as a means to protect or save someone, K-dramas send a dangerous message that stalking can be justified or excused under certain circumstances. It creates a false narrative that violating someone's boundaries and invading their privacy is acceptable, as long as it is done with good intentions or in the name of love. The whole "this is for your own good, I was just protecting you" narrative is exactly what a manipulative abuser would say. Lucky for the female lead in True Beauty, the character turns out to be a loving and sweet boyfriend, but in real life, this is a giant red flag. You might also want to point out that in romanticized depictions of stalking, the obsessive character is often played by a very attractive actor. And this is a great point, but I don't think it is about the actor's looks in real life. I think it has more to do with how the characters are played and styled. Because every single one of these actors could easily play an unsettling murderer. Just like every actor from a horror movie can play the sweetest green flag boyfriend in a different show. Everyone can look attractive with the right outfit and a good haircut. K-dramas usually tell the audience whether we're supposed to think a character is hot or ugly. Look at this guy, every straight woman in this show is swooning over him. He can't be a creep. He keeps violating the female lead's boundaries and doesn't take no for an answer, but he's tall and charming, so it is all balanced out. A creepy stalker is just some random delusional guy who's not popular, even though the actor is very attractive in real life. By virtue of being the main character, you automatically get an advantage with the viewers that makes them very forgiving. Consent doesn't work like that in real life though, and hot men don't get a free pass to violate someone's privacy. Hold on, men are not the only ones who can be stalkers. What about women? You probably noticed that most of the footage I used in this video essay so far is of men. But girl stalkers can also be found in K-dramas. A lot of times, creepy behavior from female characters is not taken seriously and is played down as a cute crush. When men are stalkers, it is either creepy or romantic. When women are stalkers, it is quirky. Let's look at some examples. Love with Flaws has a side character who is stalking the female lead. She gets an apartment close to the protagonist so she can watch her every move. There's a collage of creepy photos on her wall, something every respectable stalker needs. This show has a lukewarm depiction of stalking. She is framed as harmless and benevolent. In the story, her stalking helps the main couple get back together. Another character calls her out for being a creep, but they just hug it out? The plot is not taking her seriously at all. Oh My Venus has a creepy girl character too. She's a popular and pretty celebrity who's a huge fan of one of the male protagonists. She keeps reappearing without a warning and pestering him until she wears him down. The guy is visibly uncomfortable with her, always trying to cover himself up whenever she appears, and even avoids changing in front of her poster. In one of the episodes, she pretends to drown to manipulate him to give her CPR. Haha, it was a trick to get a kiss from him, and the guy's best friend helped her with that plan. That is super creepy. Why is his friend supporting this? The way she keeps crossing boundaries and following him is not taken seriously by the plot, and she gets the guy in the end. Her scenes have funny comedic music in the background. That's how we know that we're rooting for them as a couple. Ironically, this show also has a stalker side plot in which the female lead encounters a creepy guy. That one is taken seriously and is framed as scary and dangerous. Also, the screenwriter does know stalking is bad. Another K-drama that has a female stalker is She's in the Trap, a show that has 4 different stalkers in the story, one of whom is a girl. She's obsessed with a female lead, copies her whole look, and steals her old university presentation. She's super annoying, but not scary, and is treated more like a joke by the plot itself. There are also 2 scary stalkers, and the male lead is a creep, but he's supposed to be a morally grey bad boy. She's in the Trap truly offers the full spectrum of stalker representation. 20th Century Girl, a high school romance movie, is also a great example for this trope. The female lead goes to great lengths to find out everything about a guy, from following him home at night and going through his trash, to finding out his phone number. She keeps notes about every detail as she watches him. Her efforts go way beyond regular teenager shenanigans. And what does she get as a consequence for stalking a guy? Correct, he and his best friend both fall in love with her. Turns out one of the boys knew about it all along and thought it was cute, so it's not creepy at all. Nobody is talking about this subplot because the rest of the movie overshadows the stalking part. But what kind of lessons are viewers going to take from this movie? That going through a guy's trash is a great way to get a boyfriend? Speaking of consequences. One thing that all these K-dramas have in common is that the consequences for the stalker are never shown. There's almost never a conviction or any sort of punishment in this story. And sadly, this is the most realistic part. Until very recently, stalking was considered a misdemeanor in South Korea, which came with the maximum penalty of a 100,000 won fine, which is around 70 euros or $75. In 2019, for example, 89% of stalking cases were closed without any action taken by the police. K-dramas often show a scene in which the cops tell a victim that they can't do anything about a stalker, and that is a pretty spot-on representation of reality. In 2021, a new law was introduced. Now, stalkers can be fined with up to 30 million won, or jailed for up to 3 years, which is an improvement compared to the previous law, but it still has major flaws. For a stalker to be convicted, the victim needs to consent to the sentence, which incentivizes the perpetrator into pressuring and intimidating the victim to get the charges dropped. Okay, that is a problem, but surely now more stalkers have faced consequences, right? Not really. In the first year after the new law passed, the police have made around 7,000 arrests for stalking, but only 5% of the suspects have been detained. And among the ones who even got punished at all, the majority got a lenient sentence of less than 8 months. Around 1/3 of stalkers got a fine, and another third received probation. Getting away with stalking is still pretty easy in Korea. Statistically, a stalker is more likely to be someone the victim already knows. There are a lot of different numbers that vary depending on where and when the data is from, but the results are mostly the same. A typical stalker is a current or a former partner, an acquaintance, a colleague, or a neighbor, most of the time. A stalker you never met is terrifying and it does happen, but it is not as common as movies imply. K-dramas depict it the other way around. The guy you know who keeps following you is a harmless love interest, and an abstract faceless stranger you never talk to is the dangerous one. This portrayal plays into the stranger danger phenomena, where the unknown mysterious stalker is presented as the most likely threat. Meanwhile, the actions of someone known or familiar are excused as passionate pursuit. You should be wary of strangers and trust your instincts, but this depiction distorts the perception that nothing bad would happen with someone you know. This trope makes it harder to tell people about a stalker. they might not take it seriously because all they know from movies is stranger danger. Turns out the real stalker are the friends we made along the way. We also have to keep in mind that K-dramas are primarily a form of entertainment that follows storytelling conventions, and not an educational tool. Presenting a stalker as a faceless stranger allows for a heightened dramatic impact in the plot. It introduces an element of mystery and engages the audience in trying to guess the identity of the stalker, which is a compelling narrative device, but it doesn't reflect the reality of being stalked. What was the name of that one K-drama where a colleague called the female lead over 300 times, begging her to date him? Wait, that's not from a K-drama. That was a real murder case from 2022. The victim reported her stalker to the police, and there was an investigation, but he was never given a restraining order. He killed her in a bathroom of a subway station in Seoul. Suddenly, stalking doesn't seem like a romantic gesture anymore, does it? The romanticized portrayal of stalking in K-dramas can have real-life implications, especially for younger audiences, who don't have a lot of experiences with dating or understanding healthy relationship dynamics. Viewers might internalize these behaviors as romantic gestures without fully understanding the potential harm or the importance of consent and boundaries. It's really easy to develop unrealistic expectations of romantic relationships by watching K-dramas, in which intense pursuit, possessiveness, and crossing boundaries are necessary components of a passionate relationship. The portrayal of stalking as romantic might discourage viewers from recognizing potentially dangerous situations or red flags in their own relationships. They may downplay or ignore concerning behaviors, believing that love justifies or outweighs any risks or discomfort. K-dramas also teach viewers that they can get attention of their crush by following them and invading their privacy, which is equally as dangerous of a lesson. This trope also desensitizes the societal attitudes towards stalking. If everyone around you thinks it is acceptable, who is going to take it seriously and help? Sure, most viewers have enough critical thinking skills to tell reality and fiction apart, but if that was true, then why are there so many delusional viewers who think that K-dramas are a realistic depiction of dating in Korea? When it comes to romanticized depiction of stalking, the biggest offender, in my opinion, is Born Again from 2020. The plot of this K-drama centers three characters: a woman, her police officer boyfriend, and her delusional stalker. Doesn't sound like a setup for a love triangle, but surprisingly, it is. The three main characters, who die in the 80s version of the story, get reborn again and are fated to meet in the current time. Except now the cop is corrupt and the stalker is rich and has a new haircut, so this time around, he's hot. He is still an obsessive creep who stalks the female lead though. I hate this plot setup so much. He terrorized her in his previous life, and now her stalker is her fate again in this life? Leave her alone! Why is this framed as a fated lover's story? The female lead in Born Again is insufferable. She's the most compassionate and non-judgmental person ever. Like, so compassionate. She doesn't want to hurt her stalker's feelings and wants to fix him in both lifetimes. Why is everyone so mean to him? Just because he's a murderer and a stalker doesn't mean he's a bad person. I know female leads in K-dramas have to be humble and virtuous, but this is too much. Girl, he stole your diary, he's tracking your phone, and he's planning to kill your boyfriend. He needs a restraining order and not a hug. What is the takeaway here? That you need to be kind to your stalker because deep down he's just a nice guy who deserves to be loved? This K-drama does this thing where they set up the male lead to look suspicious so they can make it into a plot twist that actually he's not the bad guy, except he is. They bait and switch the male leads and try to sell us on the idea that the guy she loved in both lifetimes is actually the villain, and the stalker is just a misunderstood hero. I get where romanticized depiction of creepy behavior is coming from. K-dramas allow viewers to indulge in a fantasy of a man being obsessed with you through the safe distance of a TV screen. A healthy relationship with boundaries and trust is actually really boring to watch for 16 episodes. I really appreciate a dark story, but I just want a show that doesn't romanticize obsession. We as the audience deserve better, and so does Lee So-hyuk. Why is he always the second lead? Link, Eat, Love, Kill from 2022 has the most nuanced and realistic stalking representation that I have ever seen in a K-drama. The female lead has a stalker, a delusional co-worker who thinks that they are dating. It starts with unwanted gifts and following her home, and escalates to an attack that leaves the protagonist traumatized. This K-drama does a phenomenal job portraying PTSD and what stalking does to a victim. Her healing process is not sugar-coated. She has nightmares, she's scared, and she's paranoid. The female lead also realizes that she is a survivor. She grapples with what it means and realizes that other people don't always come out alive after what happened to her. She learns how to trust men again and gets a supportive green flag boyfriend, but the relationship is not depicted as a fairy tale. She finds new confidence, learns self-defense, and gets new friends. The dynamic within her family after the attack is also explored in the story. Stalking is taken 100% seriously by the plot and is depicted as a complex issue from the survivor's point of view, without making her a flawless victim. She is shown as vulnerable, but also as strong. This K-drama also briefly explores how the delusion felt for the stalker, contrasting it against her perspective, but not making it all about him. This show has 16 episodes and it really takes the time to explore this topic with compassion, and still has enough screen time for comedy, romance, and murder mysteries. If you are looking for a realistic and raw depiction of stalking that is not romanticized or sensationalized, then this is the K-drama you should watch. There are so many shows that include an obsessive protagonist that I couldn't watch all of them for this video essay. I would love to hear from you in the comments about other K-dramas and how they handled this topic.